French. Macron needs to do far more, and Starmer has been forced to beg him to stop the boats as 1,500 migrants have crossed the channel.
Yeah, quite. I mean, that language, isn't it, you saw from that the summit, the meeting yesterday with Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer, when it says it's deteriorating in the channel.
Why is Keir Starmer holding emergency migrant talks abroad instead of fixing the crisis at home? In this video, we uncover the staggering numbers behind the illegal crossings, reveal the mounting public outrage, and explore how Starmer's overseas meetings expose the cracks in his immigration strategy. Is this the turning point for Labour's leadership or their biggest failure yet? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Cracking down on illegal crossings was supposed to be a cornerstone of Keir Starmer's leadership. Yet here we are, mid-2025, facing record-breaking numbers that suggest the opposite is happening.
Here's another way of looking at it: lawlessness on the beaches. And Sir Keir Starmer seems to have another approach to curb illegal immigrations.
Over 15,000 people have reportedly crossed the channel illegally this year alone, a figure that eclipses previous records and heaps fresh pressure on an already strained system. Promises made under Labour's banner to restore order at Britain's borders now seem increasingly hollow as the situation spirals beyond control. During his campaign, Starmer spoke with conviction about restoring trust in immigration policy. For Labour, this meant dismantling what they deemed harsh and ineffective conservative deterrent measures.
The UK government, the Labour government, admitting it's deteriorating, but it is 2,000 crossings so far this week. So
scrapping these policies might have appeased a base calling for compassion, but the growing surge in arrivals was an unintended outcome. Or, at least, that's what critics say. Shadow Immigration Minister Chris Philp didn't miss a beat in pointing this out, accusing Starmer of naivety and incompetence. Philp's remarks have gained headway as frustration mounts, not just among politicians, but across the public. What exactly is Labour's plan? One voter asked in a local radio interview, capturing the general mood on the ground. The removal of faster deportation rules and limits on appeals for failed asylum claims has, according to some analysts, encouraged more crossings. Labour's defence: they argue these changes align with protecting human rights and fostering fairness. But fairness rarely stops a crisis. Even natural factors like poor weather momentarily slowed crossings earlier this year, creating only a brief respite before numbers resumed their climb. Temporary pauses like these merely highlight what critics call the root issue: policy failures. Across the country, there's an intense debate about where accountability lies.
No, not at all. I mean, we've had, more than 15,000 people crossing the English Channel this year,
While Labour blames years of mismanagement by Conservative governments, detractors counter that Starmer knowingly unravelled policies explicitly designed to act as deterrents. If Starmer indeed had a strategy for addressing these crossings, it's now being questioned openly. Strikingly, the desperation appears so acute that Labour has been forced to broaden its focus to talks with international leaders in search of answers. When attempts to secure home turf fail, does turning to foreign leaders mark diplomacy or defeat?
yeah, quite. I mean, that language, isn't it, you saw from that the summit, the meeting yesterday with Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer, when it says it's deteriorating in the channel.
Keir Starmer's decision to take the migrant crisis abroad has raised eyebrows across the political spectrum. At the G7 summit in Canada, he is reportedly holding talks with leaders like Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz, and Giorgia Meloni. While it's not unusual for Britain to engage in international diplomacy, critics question why domestic issues like illegal channel crossings now require such moves.
Nearly 40,000 have crossed since Labour have come into office. I mean, it's a national emergency, it's a crisis.
The perception that Starmer has exhausted all domestic solutions only adds to the tension. For Labour's critics, these meetings look less like diplomacy and more like an admission of failure. Public scrutiny has focused on Starmer's prioritisation of foreign leaders over his own parliament. In particular, the emphasis on coordinating with France has reignited long-standing frustrations.
You can't rely on the French. You need to create your own deterrence. I mean, the view of the French is quite straightforward.
The big leaders in the European Union, Meloni for Italy, Merz from Germany, and of course Macron from France, they need to get to grips with this.
Starmer has framed these talks as vital for enhancing enforcement in northern France, but skeptics point to reports of French authorities failing to act, with some filmed watching migrants launch dinghies bound for British shores. That image alone has fueled claims of ineffective cooperation. Instead of a robust plan, many see a leader scrambling to outsource solutions while the crisis at home festers.
French, Macron needs to do far more, and Starmer's been forced to beg him to stop the boats as 1,500 migrants have crossed the channel.
His choice to visit Canada further underscores the gravity of the issue. While it's a fitting venue for multilateral discussions, it also signals how far-reaching Labour's search for answers has become. Starmer's own statements about improving ties with Europe have been touted as forward-thinking by his allies, reflecting a desire for broader collaboration. Yet, for a growing number of Britons, this strategy seems weak, reliant on foreign assistance to tackle what they see as British border failures.
Countries do that bit more to try to clamp down on the illegal trade, the illegal sort of transiting of people.
Meanwhile, public anger is simmering. Constituents have openly asked why Starmer isn't addressing their concerns at home. Headlines criticize his seeming detachment from immediate action, and confidence in Labour's ability to manage the crisis continues to erode. Even as Starmer commits to cross-border intelligence sharing and stronger enforcement with neighbouring countries, the small boats keep coming, and the numbers don't lie. His critics ask, if his domestic policies weren't effective, what guarantees do these international talks offer? As crossings surge unabated, Starmer faces a critical question. Can he pivot this international outreach into tangible results, or does this gamble expose an even deeper failure of leadership? Keir Starmer's decision to rely on foreign leaders like Emmanuel Macron and Giorgia Meloni to address Britain's migration crisis reveals a glaring weakness in his approach. Instead of delivering on promises to control borders through robust domestic measures, Labour has been forced into international diplomacy as crossings hit record highs.
The numbers are dreadful and difficult. The PM has forced the issue of migrants onto the agenda at G8. There's an entire session.
Shadow Immigration Minister Chris Philp called it a total collapse of border control, a statement that resonates with a public losing patience. If Labour struggles now, what does that mean for Britain's future under Starmer's leadership? His next move will either rebuild public trust or define his government's failure.